And in Strasbourg, France today, the president warned that while al-Qaeda remains a major threat to the U.S., the threat to Europe is greater for geographical reasons. In advance of the NATO summit, the president also spoke of the need to better prepare NATO for the challenges of the 21st century.
We must ensure that NATO is equipped and capable of facing down the threats and challenges of this new age.
President Obama is speaking ahead of a summit marking NATO's 60th anniversary. The U.S. continued to shed jobs at an unrelenting pace in March. NPR's Katie Dunn has details.
More than 5 million people have now lost their jobs since the recession started in December 2007. That brings the unemployment rate to 8.5%, a 25-year high. All sectors suffered in March, although manufacturing, construction, and temporary help took an especially large hit. Analysts say in order to get the economy moving again, people need to start spending. But since consumer confidence is down and people have less disposable income, that seems unlikely in the near future. In its latest report, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development said unemployment will likely exceed 10% by the end of next year. Slightly fewer people lost jobs in March than in January. During that month, the U.S. lost over 700,000 jobs, the third highest number ever in 1 month. Katie Dunn, NPR News, Washington.
The service sector shrank for the 6th straight month. The Institute for Supply Management Services Index dropped from 41.6 in February to 40.8 in March. The private trade group's gauge finds the decline happened at a much faster pace than expected as more people lost their jobs. Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke acknowledged today that the central bank was extremely uncomfortable about last year's bailouts of major financial firms. But speaking at a Fed conference in North Carolina today, Bernanke said the bank's actions to ease the financial crisis are working. On Wall Street, we have gains now. The Dow's up 7.25 points at 7,985. You're listening to NPR News. A former U.S. Navy sailor has been sentenced to the maximum 10 years in prison for leaking classified national defense information. From member station WNPR, Diane Orson reports.
U.S. District Judge Mark Kravitz said he could not overstate the seriousness of the crime. While on active duty, Hassan Abu Jihad communicated with foreign terror suspects through a Connecticut-based website, disclosing secret information about the location and vulnerabilities of a Navy battle group ordered to the Persian Gulf in 2001. Acting U.S. Attorney Nora Danahy.
Hassan Abu Jihad betrayed his fellow sailors, he betrayed his country, and the government is satisfied that the court gave this defendant the maximum under the law.
A second conviction of providing material support to terrorists was overturned last month. Abu Jihad's lawyers have filed an appeal. For NPR News, I'm Diane Orson in New Haven.
North Korea is pressing ahead with final preparations to blast a rocket over Japan, and Pyongyang says it is launching a satellite into orbit. However, South Korea, Japan, and the U.S. suspect the North is actually preparing a long-range missile test sometime in the next several days. Japan says it is taking several measures to protect its country, including deploying anti-missile systems off its coast. The U.S. military launched an airstrike on several people who were apparently planting a roadside bomb north of the Iraqi capital. One person was killed last night. The military says the gunman was a member of the Sons of Iraq, a Sunni group that broke with insurgents and cooperated with U.S.-led forces. I'm Lakshmi Singh, NPR News, Washington.
Support for NPR comes from the Ford Foundation, a resource for innovative people and institutions worldwide, on the web at fordfound.org.
This is Science Friday from NPR News. I'm Ira Flato here in Tempe, Arizona, reporting from Arizona State University. And I'm sure most of you have heard of the crocodile hunter, very, very famous person on television. But what about microbe hunters? These microbiologists trek to the weirdest, most hellish places on Earth, wondering if they'll find anything living there. Take the folks who hike to one hot destination, the rust-stained river in Spain called the Rio Tinto, where the water is more acidic than vinegar. It's loaded with heavy metals, and you might think that life has a really hard time surviving in these conditions. But scientists were surprised to find a microbial zoo of amoebas and algae and fungi and yeast and bacteria all just chugging away doing their thing there. And other microbe hunters have found hardy microbes thriving in the frigid, dry valleys of Antarctica, living in poor, salty soil with only a rare drop of water, topped off by a healthy dose of ultraviolet light. These discoveries are exciting for astrobiologists because they reason, and it sounds like it's pretty reasonable, if life persists in these inhospitable places on Earth, why not some sort of slush beneath the surface of Mars, or maybe on Europa, a moon of Jupiter? It's certainly a tantalizing possibility, especially with the recent discovery of methane in the Martian atmosphere. Was it from some tenacious bacterial colony hidden away somewhere? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about this hour. We've gathered some of the world's top astrobiologists to talk about what we know and don't know about life on Earth, and where they'd place their bets for finding life elsewhere in our galaxy, if not in our solar system or our universe. We're here at the campus of Arizona State University, broadcasting from the first annual Origin Symposium. And if you're here in the audience, you're welcome to step up to the microphone in front. And if you have your cell phone and you'd like to call in, our number is 1-800-989-8255. Also in Second Life, you can go to Science Friday Island. And our Twitter is @SciFri. That's @SciFri. Let me introduce my guest this hour. Ariel Anbar is Associate Professor in the School of Earth and Space Exploration and the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry at Arizona State University in Tempe. He's also the Principal Investigator of the NASA Astrobiology Institute team here. Welcome to Science Friday, Dr. Anbar.
Thank you.
Sitting next to him is Dr. Barry Blumberg. He's the winner of the 1976 Nobel Prize in Medicine and the founding director of the NASA Astrobiology Institute. He's also a distinguished scientist at the NASA Lunar Science Institute and NASA Astrobiology Institute. Welcome to the show, Dr. Blumberg. Peter Ward is professor for the Department of Biology and Astrobiology program at the University of Washington in Seattle. Welcome back to Science Friday, Dr.
All right, nice to talk to you again.
Good to see you, Peter. And Paul Davies is a cosmologist, physicist, and astrobiologist, and director of the Beyond Center at Arizona State University here in Tempe. Welcome back to Science Friday.
Thank you.
Good to actually see you in person. I see so many people when we're not on the road that it's good to meet them in person. Let me start with you, Dr. Blumberg. You started this whole thing with an institute or with working with NASA. Why did you think you needed to create this sort of niche area?
There was a growing interest in studying the origin of life and testing the hypothesis that life might exist elsewhere. And that was accelerated by the availability of instruments that will allow us to look at these things. The immediate causation, or near immediate causation, was the studies on a meteorite found in the Antarctic, ALH 84001, that initially was thought to contain some relics of bacterial, very small bacteria within it, and certain other characteristics that might be associated with life, that matter that has been a subject of intense study in that particular rock. And there were just forces coming together that made it an appropriate time to focus on that. And NASA took the initiative since much of their research, one of the most interesting things is whether there's life on Mars or Europa or Titan or elsewhere in the universe. But in order to understand that, one had to understand how life started here, because the model we have for life is the only model we have. That is the one that's here. And we use that model with the full expectation that it can be rejected. One often puts up a model in a way, hope it's rejected, in the sense you'll be discovering something quite new if you reject the old vision of it, the old image, the old model of it. And it was also recognized that we had to have a multidisciplinary program. So NASA decided to set up a virtual institute with an administrative center at one of their bases in California, at NASA Ames Research Center, and then to select teams from academia, from other sites, and to provide them long-term funding, 5-year funding, because the projects in astrobiology are long-term. In fact, they're generational.
Take a while to find these things. Ariel, you read the long list of, and Dr. Bloomberg talked about this has to be a multidisciplinary setup because you just don't know what you're going to be needing.
Right, right.
What kind of knowledge you're going to bring to the table on this.
Right. You need to bring together geologists, biologists, chemists, astronomers, astrophysicists.
And you have to also believe that there is life out there, right?
Well, no, you don't have to believe that.
You don't have to believe that.
You don't have to believe that. I mean, it's a common misconception about astrobiology that yes, we are searching for evidence of life out there, but whether you find it or not, from a scientific standpoint, is equally compelling. You could even make the case that if you don't find it, that's a more profound discovery than if you find life elsewhere. And the idea for that is if you step back and ask why are we engaged in this search, what astrobiology is really all about is trying to determine, are we unique? Is life on Earth an unusual freak thing? And hence are we, by inference, an unusual freak thing in the cosmos? Or is